Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a massive contradiction that just hit the tech world, and honestly, it tells us exactly where the entire industry is heading. We're going to take a really close look at Microsoft's recent workforce changes. It's a story full of record profits, massive investments, and then unexpected, very deep cuts. We're going to break down the real business logic behind the headlines so you can see exactly how all these pieces fit together. Let's kick things off with one absolutely massive number. 4,800. Microsoft recently announced they've laid off 4,800 employees worldwide. Now, to put that into perspective, that represents about 2.1% of their entire global workforce. These cuts primarily hit their Xbox gaming business, along with their commercial sales and consulting organizations. And sure, layoffs in big tech aren't exactly a new phenomenon, but the context surrounding this specific round of cuts, it is absolutely fascinating. Okay, let's dive into this, because this right here is the core paradox. Notice the stark contrast. We have 4,800 involuntary, forced layoffs happening immediately after roughly 3,000 voluntary retirements wrapped up just days prior. Think about that for a second. Microsoft had literally just concluded its first ever voluntary retirement program, which was specifically designed to reduce their headcount without forcing people out. And yet, almost immediately after all those people happily left, the forced cuts happened anyway. To really grasp how desperately Microsoft tried to avoid these forced layoffs, you just have to look at how incredibly generous this voluntary retirement package actually was. Even by tech industry standards, this was huge. Employees who opted in could get up to 39 weeks of base salary as severance, with a minimum of 8 weeks guaranteed. They offered up to 5 years of healthcare coverage, depending on eligibility, plus continued stock vesting for 6 to 12 months. Microsoft spent hundreds of millions of dollars on this single initiative. Now, they determined who was eligible using a really interesting metric called the Rule of 70. Basically, if an employee's combined age and years of service at Microsoft totaled at least 70, they qualified. And here's the crazy part. This program was actually a massive success. Over 30% of eligible senior staff happily took the deal. Thousands of highly experienced people chose to walk away. But despite that massive success and all those millions spent, it clearly still wasn't enough to achieve the broader restructuring Microsoft actually wanted. Section 1. What happened to Xbox? A massive reset in the gaming division. So let's zoom in on Xbox for a minute. The sheer scale of the cuts here is just staggering. A full 20% of Xbox positions are being eliminated during the current fiscal year. To break that down, roughly 1,600 employees are leaving the gaming division immediately, with a total of 3,200 positions slated to be cut overall. That's 1/5 of the entire gaming division completely eliminated. And we aren't just talking about trimming middle management here. Microsoft is executing an unthinkable restructuring of the gaming business itself. They're planning to separate entirely from highly renowned studios like Compulsion Games, Double Fine Productions, Ninja Theory, and Undead Labs. On top of that, they're actively reviewing strategic options for Arcane Studios in France. Honestly, just a few years ago, cutting these massive creative engines loose would have seemed totally impossible. This really hits the nail on the head regarding the core disconnect happening at Xbox right now. On paper, Xbox looks like an absolute juggernaut. They literally just spent $69 billion acquiring Activision Blizzard. They own these massive, legendary franchises: Call of Duty, Halo, Minecraft, Diablo. But in reality, owning great franchises hasn't magically translated into a healthier bottom line. That massive acquisition brought heavy organizational bloat, and now that bloat is crashing headfirst into some very sluggish business realities. Let's move to these 4 converging economic hurdles and see how this builds into a perfect storm that's crippling Xbox's traditional model. Step 1, console sales have slowed down, with Sony and Nintendo continuing to dominate a lot of the hardware markets. Step 2, Game Pass, their big subscription model, has stalled out. It just hasn't become the unstoppable growth engine they were banking on. Step 3, studio costs have absolutely soared following years of acquisitions, creating enormous payroll and development expenses. And step 4, Microsoft is shifting to a multi-platform strategy. They're releasing first-party titles beyond just Xbox hardware, which fundamentally reduces the need for their old console-centric organizational structure. Xbox CEO Asha Sharma reportedly summed this whole situation up perfectly using just 2 words: a reset. The objective here is incredibly clear. They are streamlining to simplify the organization, improve their profit margins, and focus their investments on areas where Microsoft believes it can generate much stronger long-term returns. Section 2, the AI capital shift, where the money is going. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer scale and destination of Microsoft's investments. Unprecedented billions of dollars are flowing directly into AI data centers, GPU infrastructure, Azure expansion, AI software platforms, and Copilot. But here's the thing about corporate budgets. They're a zero-sum game. Every single dollar poured into these massive new AI initiatives creates immense, crushing pressure to reduce costs in legacy departments like Xbox. Which brings us to a super vital nuance. AI isn't replacing these specific jobs directly, it's redirecting the capital that funded them. Microsoft insists that AI software is not directly doing the jobs of those 4,800 laid-off workers. I mean, an AI isn't sitting there designing the next level of Halo, right? Instead, AI is essentially starving those legacy departments of capital because it's fundamentally changed where the company chooses to invest for the future. Section 3, Big Tech's New Normal, the era of continuous portfolio management. We're basically watching a relentless new tech cycle play out in real time. The industry spends years hiring aggressively during periods of high growth. Then, over a span of just a few months, priorities drastically shift, like we saw with the sudden explosion of AI. Within weeks, massive teams are completely reorganized, and then, in a matter of days, thousands of jobs are eliminated in a sharp contraction. Employment at large tech companies increasingly resembles a financial portfolio. It expands and contracts rapidly based entirely on strategic shifts. So, what does this all mean for us? Why does this matter to you? Well, you need to rethink how you protect your own career. Here's your new survival toolkit. The reality is, traditional long-term career stability at a single tech giant is fading fast. Instead, your security comes from adaptability and continuous learning. You've got to position yourself to move into emerging areas, specifically AI, cloud infrastructure, cybersecurity, and data engineering. That is where the capital is flowing, for sure. Which leaves us with this final kind of provocative thought to ponder. In an industry where highly profitable companies are continuously reshaping themselves and rapidly allocating capital away from legacy projects and toward the next big thing, is technical skills still enough? Just being incredibly good at your job is no longer a guarantee of security if the capital funding your department suddenly dries up. The tech landscape has permanently changed, and your adaptability might just be the absolute most important skill you have. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep adapting, and I'll catch you next time.